Welcome back to the channel. My name is Niladri Mukherjee and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I practice in Mississauga, Ontario. Let's talk about Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, or SINP in short. I'm not going to talk about the the program in detail, because you could easily go to their website and find out the complete information. The provincial websites are the best place for you to get a crux of the program if you're into that. But I'm going to talk about how the program has been working of late and what are the positives and negatives about the program. And if you are a potential aspirant of a permanent residency visa of Canada, why this program is important to you, right? So this is one of the programs, this is one of the PNPs that have been working extremely well all throughout from the time it is almost launched. Even during pandemic, when there was no express entry draw, Saskatchewan is one of such provinces that consistently came out with draws and keep on selecting the candidates from time to time. It is still doing so. And in fact, if you are following the news, the cutoff has at its lowest, right? Like 60 points is what you need in order to qualify under SINP. I mean, their own criteria, but which is amazing because it used to be very high even a few months back. So this is definitely one of the programs, this is one of the PNPs that really work for majority of the express entry aspirant who are not getting invitations directly, right? And it's quite common to not to get an invitation directly because of the very high CRS. So if you are not in Canada, this is definitely one of the programs that you can potentially consider about. Now, obviously, there are some positives and some negatives about the program. There could be many, but I'm going to talk about the one specific that I find is very interesting to mention. Let's talk about the positives. The biggest positive is that it does not require you to have a job offer, right? So you do not have to really search for an employer in order to qualify under the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program, and that really takes away the burden for majority of the candidates, in my opinion. And obviously, it has a job offer stream as well, but I'm talking about the ones that do not require you to have a job offer. So if you are somebody that is outside Canada and if you meet their other criterias, you are being selected. If you're being selected, you get a nomination, you apply, and then you get your PR based on that nomination through the SINP nomination, right? So this does not require you to have a job offer, which in itself is amazing. The other positive, if I have to talk about, is that this program is consistently has been working. As I have said, even during pandemic, Saskatchewan is one such province that consistently came out with draws, and this is still the case, and the cutoff is just on a declining spree. So this is not such PNP such as Nova Scotia, for which you have to like really wait and watch. You just have a profile in Saskatchewan, a perfect profile, and if you're being picked up, you can submit your file and just wait for a decision on that. So this is a working program. This is a very much workable opportunity. So what are the negatives? Like any other PNPs, the major negative that I could think of is the processing time. Now, Saskatchewan is one such PNP that really takes a lot of time to review a file before they come out with a decision. So if you get a nomination today, for example, and if you submit your file within a month's time, you are easily looking at about 1 year to 1.5 years to revert, for them to revert back with a decision. That's a super long time. People lose their patience. The circumstance of life changed, but this is what it is, right? The processing time is very, very long when it comes to SINP. The second that I could think of is the review stage at the immigration officers level. Now, Saskatchewan is one such province that where the immigration officers are very, very anal. They are very thorough in reviewing their application. I'm not saying that the other PNP officers are not reviewing the application in as detail, but the granularity at which that applications are being looked at by the SINP officials are at the highest level. So you really need to make sure that your application is just perfect, like just perfect in simple term, right? So this is something to be taken care of. The third factor, or the third point, which I think is a real negative, is the fact that SINP requires you to have your work experience direct correlation with your education, meaning that if you are a graduate of Bachelor of Science, SINP expects you to be working in a field which is related to the science. But in today's date, where the work experience could be very different from the education as well, right? For example, if I talk about South Asia, if I talk about even Southeast Asia, a certain part of Middle East, Africa, And in fact, if I talk about Eastern European regions as well, the work experience is almost always different from your education. You could be a Bachelor of Science graduate, but you could be working in IT. You could be a Bachelor of Science graduate, for example, you could be working in banking. So what you really have to do is that you have to, at this time of submitting your application, if you think that your work experience has some relevance to your education, then you have to explain that to the officers. So the onus really lies on you, the aspirants, the applicants, to explain that to the officer in the form of a properly drafted explanation letter as to why do you think your experience is relevant to the education. If you do not explain that, they are very would be super eager to send the file back. So the onus really lies on you to make sure you experience. Now, it could also be the case that your experience and your education are absolutely completely different. In that case, obviously, you do not have anything to explain. But if you do think you have anything to explain, if you have moved on to your career in a gradual fashion, and that you have sufficient reasons to prove that your work experience that you have been working on so far has some kind of correlation with with your education, then you should very well explain that, and then you should be fine. So when it comes to Saskatchewan, the one thing that you have to keep in mind is the completeness of the application. This is where majority of the applications have been rejected. This is where the majority of the applications have been turned down because of the completeness. As I have said before, the officers that will review the applications are reviewing the application in a very, very, very granular fashion. They are very anal officers. So if your application is not perfect, there is probably every possibility that it will be sent back. But if you are able to do things properly, there is every possibility that you will get your permanent residency based on these programs. If you need my professional assistance with either preparing your SINP application, or to consult you, or to review your application, or to review your application before you actually submit it, drop me a line, contact@nuvonation.ca. Shall be glad to assist you. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye now.